Why, hello guys! I am Clement from the Graphe Tech, and this is the 7th video of my HTML and CSS tutorial course. If you were with me in the previous video, we talked about HTML images, and we successfully imported an image from the directory of a really cool cat. You can see he even wears glasses. What the hell? Well, anyway, I digress. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about a very critical part of HTML, known as the HTML forms. An example of an HTML form is your sign-in page or your sign-up page on Facebook, Twitter, or any other social media account. This sign-up or sign-in pages ask you to input your data into some fields. Those fields constitute our form, and we are going to do that today. So I am going to start out by clearing out the body tag, and this is not our very first code anymore, so I'll just change this to tutorial on HTML and CSS. Alright, just for the sake of completeness. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I am going to style my form tag. And if you didn't get me before, forms are used to collect user input primarily. That's the function of a HTML form, to collect user inputs. And they are written by writing FORM and closing the tag. Of course, this form takes in some attributes, but we're not going to get into that for now. For now, we're just going to fill in the form element with some input elements, and input elements are always inside the form element, most times. So, right now, the first input element we're going to write is just a simple element with a type attribute, and I am going to write text, or yeah, I can leave it like this, a type text. You'll soon see what that means. I'll close it, I'll save the document, and I'll reload. You can see that we have an empty text box that we can type inside, and this is primarily the function of a form. So basically, I'm just going to adjust this a bit. I'll give it type text, but I'll give it an other attribute, a name attribute, which is used as a form of identifier for forms. And I'm going to call this, well, let's assume that the user wants, the site wants you to enter the username. So I'll just write name, and I'll add one more, placeholder. And placeholder is used to show describe what should be inside the text, the text element, the input element rather. And I can say enter your name. I save this and I run it. You see that suddenly enter your name pops up, prompting the user to enter his or her name. Cool, right? Now, if I type in here, my name is Clement, you see that the enter your name tag goes away, but the moment I clear every single character, it shows up, and that is the function of the placeholder attribute. Yes, that's good. Well, another input element, which is not exactly an input element, but stays in the form tag, is the label. It's a very important element that actually is used to specify or to identify or to direct the user to the input tag. Like for now, I can call this name. Label takes in an attribute called for, and this for attribute is used to create a linkage between the input tag that the label is for. So for now, let's just save this and run it and see what shows. You see that name shows up beside enter your name. And this name comes from here. So how do we create this linkage? It's usually good practice and for better user interface too. When I click a label, it should select the box and make the cursor active. But ours doesn't do this. How do we make this work? It's really easy. We just give the input element an ID. I talked about ID in previous lectures. So an ID is just like an identifier for any basic element, and we're going to be using that here. Let's call this, well, name. Then we can go here in the for attribute and write name in between our empty quotes. And if I save this and I reload the page, if I click on name, you see that the text box is selected. And that's a very great thing, and it helps with user experience. There are several input tags out there, and I probably can't scratch every single thing today, but I'll just try and go pretty deep into the form universe and try and show you as many as I can. So the input, another input that is really important is the radio button, or I can go into the submit button first. And the submit button is simple, just write an input. You can see that most of them have the same pattern, as you soon see soon. And it has a type of submit, as you would guess, and you can close the tag. If I save this and I click on reload, you see a submit button gets added here to this line. And that is pretty cool. So we can also change the text that is on this button. It's not always going to be submit. It could be anything. And how do we change the text? We simply write value, the value attribute. And we write, let's say, maybe sign up, like on Facebook or on Twitter. If I save this and I run it, you see the text changes. You can see how powerful and important the form element is, the HTML forms. And there are so many other input tags, like for example the radio input tag. Radio buttons are buttons that can only be selected one at a time if they appear in a group. That is the purpose of a radio button, and I'll show you this. If I just go above the submit tag and I write input, small letters, input type radio, and this type must have a name for reasons you see later. If I call this students names, for example, and I give this a value, which is also another important attribute, a value of, say, let me say Clement, and I close my tag, and I simply repeat this, type radio, name, and in a form element where we have a button, the names must be the same, as you soon see. Names, right? Value, I can call this, let me see, my brother's name, Benedict, and I close the tag. If I reload this page, or before I do that, I'm going to add some labels to it, which is pretty important. I can go here and add a label very quickly, and I will call this label I'll leave it for out for now. It's not very important. I'll just write Clement, and I'll come here, I'll add a label, and I'll write Benedict. Cool. This label is just meant to signify that a Benedict radio button is here, but let me just save it and I'll explain then. As we can see, 2 radio buttons have showed up, and only one can be selected at a time. This is how it's meant to be, and it's like this because they have the same name attribute, name and name. But if in the event I misspell student name, and maybe say student na, and I save this, if I reload my page, if I click on Clement, you see I click on Clement, click on Benedict, and I select the two at the same time, which is not meant to be. It's a wrong practice for HTML radio buttons. But if I correct this again, you can see, and I save, you can see that I can now select one at a time. This is better practice. If you want to select multiple boxes at a time, you can simply use the checkbox input element, which is written type checkbox and name. I can call this, the name is pretty optional here, I guess. I can call this my score, my test score, right? And call this my test score, and I close it. Maybe I'll have another one here. I know this video is getting a bit long. I'll soon end it and continue in another video, but let me just get this straight for now. Test score, it can have the same name, or no, it has to have different names, I think. I call this, it can still have the same name, doesn't really matter. Then maybe I'll give it a value. The value must differ of, let's say, 50, and test score here, value of 40 or 30. He failed. So I can just write a label here just to signify what it's for. I'll write Clement. Clement got 50 over 100. He should study more. And another label here called Benedict. We are flunking for some reason. Let me save this page and I reload. You can see we have a checkbox for Clement and Benedict. And in the checkbox, we can select and unselect, which is the purpose of a checkbox, to be able to check and uncheck different elements and different activities. But for the radio button, you can only select one at a time. You see, I know we covered a lot. I hope I didn't confuse you in any of this. There's a lot more input elements to cover anyway. I'll just take care of that in the next video. But I think this is a good start for now. And just a little recap. Form elements are primarily used to collect user input. And in the beginning of the video, I talked about the attribute of the form element. There are two major attributes: the action attribute and the method attribute. I will talk about this attribute in the next lecture. So this is the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a like. It really means the world to me when you guys do that. And I hope you guys will have a wonderful day. Please subscribe as well. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye for now.